Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. We unfortunately will start with the New Orleans Saints. Pretty predictable last night, right, guys? Pretty predictable. New Orleans had no ability to do anything at all on the offensive side of the football. Spencer Rattler was in there. He was ineffective. They couldn't block. They couldn't run the ball. He ends up getting hurt after turning the ball over a couple of times. Hayner throws a touchdown. Too little, too late. Drew Brees gets honored. Sean Payton comes back. It's just an absolute snooze fest to try to watch this team play football right now. And it was last night. It was a great time at LeBear's last night. We had a wonderful time. Great environment. We're watching some baseball, watching the Saints. But the game is just not interesting to watch because this Saints offense is completely ill-equipped with the personnel that it has on the field to do anything against upper-level NFL defenses. And the Broncos are certainly an upper-level NFL defense, even if Pat Surtain Jr. is not out there on the field, which he wasn't. Rattler finishes 25 of 35. He was dinking and dunking when he stretched the field. It wasn't pretty. The pass rush affected him all night. I mean, on one play, Nick Saldiveri absolutely whiffed on a defensive tackle. I don't even know how that's possible, but it happened. Rattler immediately chucked it down the sideline out of bounds on a third down for that play. None of that is surprising. None of it is overly concerning. They just don't have their guys, and you're not going to be able to play at the NFL level without these guys. I told you yesterday, I'm putting my foot in my mouth. I'm admitting I'm wrong. 2 weeks ago, I told you I don't want to hear about injuries. It's not an excuse. Everybody's got injuries. Go out there and play. When you have this many injuries and you don't have your center and you don't have your right guard and you don't have your left guard and you don't have Taysom Hill, and you don't have Rashid Shaheed who got carted off the field, you don't have Chris Olave, you don't Rashid didn't play. I mean, the carted off defensive player there, Adebo. Either way, you don't have Rashid Shaheed, you don't have Chris Olave, you don't have your offensive guys. That is just part of the deal, and I don't have to weigh in on my takes on the franchise when you look at your offense. When you look at the defense and their complete and total inability to stop the run game at all, that was the backbone of this franchise for a long time. You had Brees on offense, and no one could run the ball. I mean, what was the streak of 100-yard rushers? You didn't have a 100-yard rusher for multiple seasons, and now it's just a turnstile. 35 carries for 225 yards for Denver last night. That is an average of 6.4 yards per carry, and there wasn't even a carry to skew the numbers. Bo Nix had one 32-yard run. Javonte Williams had one 20-yard run. Jaleel McLaughlin had one 21-yard run. But they were just consistently moving the pile. And I don't know if the Saints aren't good enough, if they're too old, if they're not motivated, if they're frustrated because the offense can't do anything. But one way or another, the Saints defense has collapsed over the last month, and they're not hurt. Warner was out, and Adebo left the game. But you had Lattimore. You had Matthew. He's dropping picks. Cam Jordan's out there. Chase Young's out there. Granderson's out there. Brzez's out there. DeMario Davis is out there. Like, you've got your guys, and you can't stop the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix looked abysmal last night. I was watching the game at LeBear's, and some of these throws, the difficulty level on it looked like when I tossed my son his stuffed animal in the living room. It's like, here, just float it. And he couldn't even do that. There was one drive, first, second, and third down. He had wide open receivers on all three downs and didn't even come close to hitting him.
The one where he had two guys just completely wide open.
And he split him right in the middle. It was that drive.
Yeah.
And then he had another one. He was rolling to his left. The guy was open, and he just spiked it in the ground. And then on third down, he had a guy open in the middle of the field. There was no Saints around him. He still missed. Bo Nix looked awful last night. He was 16 of 26 for 164 yards. But because your defense is completely inept in the running game, it didn't matter. They just plowed ahead. I mean, sadly, I've been covering this team and talking about them, and I knew what they were up against. I went to the window last night at LeBear's and just put $40 down on the Broncos minus 1.5 in the first half. That was a rocking chair cover, 16-6. The Saints didn't even think about getting in the end zone, and the defense, quite frankly, didn't even think about stopping the Broncos. If Nix doesn't spike those three balls we're just talking about, they go and score on that drive. Thankfully, the Saints showed some kind of a backbone in the red zone, which triggered Denver having to kick a bunch of field goals. Will Lutz is going out there and getting booed every time. That kind of surprised me, by the way.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I thought Lutz was decent, but
he got traded, by the way. He didn't just leave.
I know, and I know that he wasn't great at the end. He got a little wobbly there at the end. But
he was hurt.
He had a pretty good go of it for a while for the Saints. They were booing the crap out of him, but it didn't matter. He was knocking them right through the middle of the uprights. I mean, if Denver could finish drives in the red zone, they'd have scored 45, 50 points in this game. And the Saints offense had no answer there. And it's a sad state of where things are now with the New Orleans Saints, because you understand this is not going to get any better. Like, they're going to get a little healthier, but the end is here. Like, Dennis Allen's time as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints is going to end. And you can take the pie chart and allot that blame anywhere you want, from Derek Carr to Mickey Loomis to injuries to age to salary cap. Like, you can allot the pie chart any which way you want and shoulder and dump as much blame in any departments that you want. But the easiest thing to make the change with is the coach. The quarterback is on the books. He is what he is. The salary cap, there's not a lot you can do because you create a bunch of dead money. The general manager is tied into the highest level of the franchise in written documents. That's not changing. There's only one chess piece that gets lifted out. You've tried everything else that can be done. You went to the offensive staff. You gutted it this past year. You put this out there. And look, it looked great for 2 weeks. And then the offensive line went down. And because the offensive line went down, the quarterback went down. And now because of bad luck, the playmakers have gone down. And so that fix hasn't fixed anything. It's a 5-game losing streak. And there is time to come up for oxygen at the end of this schedule. You've still got the Panthers. You still got the Browns. You still got the Rams. You still got the Raiders. Like, you still got the Giants. There are games to be won. But who are we kidding? Like, this gig is up. I thought it was a proper move, an understandable move, to hire Dennis Allen as the head coach in that time. You had an organization that was functioning among the elites of the NFL. And trying to uproot the entire thing felt unnecessary. But you swung and missed on Jameis, and you kind of swung and missed on Derek Carr, and ultimately you've swung and missed with Dennis Allen. And I feel bad for him to a degree because of what's happened in the training room the last month. I feel bad about that. But the proof is the proof. And his baby, the thing that made him the candidate to be in this position, the thing that was supposed to be the backbone of this team, has completely and totally cratered. You couldn't hold a lead late against the Falcons. You couldn't stop the Chiefs from moving the ball. You gave up 51 to Tampa last week, and the Broncos came into town with a bad quarterback and ran it right down your throat. It's over. And sadly, as I look at this, and this will be a discussion for another day, but it doesn't feel like this is fixable in the short term. You've got a lot of restructuring and of the books that has to happen. And this is part of the discussion that we had in the offseason, that I did not think that Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu and Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and Derek Carr and Ryan Ramczyk, I did not think those guys would be on the next really good Saints team. And it looked like I was dead wrong after 2 weeks. But now as we reassess with more information, that feels like the case. The Saints don't feel close. They don't feel a quick fix away from getting this done. They feel like an organization in disrepair that has to gut it and kind of start over. And that's a really, really difficult thing to say, because the Saints haven't had to do that since Hurricane Katrina. But as you sit here right now, it's very difficult to evaluate it any other way. I told you yesterday, I'm never going to tell someone how to feel. You can't change how you feel. But I can suggest some things to consider. And you have to consider the age of this roster, the state of the salary cap, the quarterback position, the head coach, the brass that's been in charge of putting this all together, and realize that you're just not one or two moves away. You're a long way away. And that was crystallized last night when for the 5th week in a row, the backbone of your franchise, your defense, just bit the dust. And last thing on last night, because I think it is worth mentioning, and I was listening yesterday to Mike Triplett on Matt Moscona's show after further review, said, man, isn't it a shame that Drew Brees' night is in this circumstance? And man, was that absolutely true. Because that guy deserves the hero's welcome that he ultimately got, running out of the tunnel, leading the chant, doing the whole thing at halftime. But everybody in that dome is depressed. And maybe you could suggest, oh, that's like a perfect bit of symbolism to like what's happened now that he's been removed from the equation. But more so, like, Drew deserved to go into a fun, raucous, hyped up Thursday night football crowd. And if you could just imagine if the Saints had beaten Philly and then beaten Atlanta, and then and all of a sudden you look up and instead of riding a 4-game losing streak, they were 5-1. Man, that place would have been on springs, and that's the welcome back Drew so richly deserved. And for him to go back into a morgue with the carcass of the franchise rotting on the sideline is sad. But that's what the situation was last night. And Beck, I've talked about this a lot. Like, I don't like particularly bashing, and I use air quotes there, the Saints, because I don't feel like I'm in the foxhole with my listeners there. When I come on here and the baseball team starts 3-12, like, I'm right there with you sweating out the entire thing. And I feel like I'm talking with you instead of at you. In this instance, I feel like I'm kind of just beating a dead horse. You come from a little bit more black and gold background than I do. Like, am I out of bounds here?
No, you're not. I mean, at this point, I think most Saints fans are kind of just fed up, and it's not too surprising what's happening. Obviously, with the injuries, with Dennis Allen being the coach that he is, and so at this point, it's just sad, and there's just not a lot of feeling, at least for me right now. I'm just kind of I watched the game, and it went as everyone expected it would. I mean, the Saints were inept on offense; they had no chance on defense, and the defense. I don't think the defense is bad. I think they just quit. I mean, it looked to me like that last touch. I don't know if it was the last touchdown, but one of those last touchdowns they had, the Javonte Williams run in the third quarter. The defense, they showed the replay. DeMario Davis didn't even try to fill the hole. Like, they're just not trying.
And I wasn't there, obviously. I'm in Baton Rouge. I'm at LeBear's. But there was a tweet. It was from either Jeff Duncan or Triple, one of the guys in the press box, that said, like, Alvin Kamara was, like, visibly frustrated, yelling at the sideline.
Yeah.
And, like, I get that, man. You're beat up. You're hurt. You want a new contract. You have no offensive line. You have no quarterback. You have no wide receivers. You have no Taysom. Like, it's 41 or nothing. And, like, that sucks. You're a piñata at that point, just taking the football and getting waylaid by one of the best defenses in the NFL. Man, I get that for Kamara. I stand by the point that I've made dating back to August. Like, I'm not in a hurry for the Saints to go dump a bunch of money in a 31-year-old running back. But I appreciate him for trying, man. That is an awful situation to be in, to know, man, I got to get this ball, and these guys are just going to tee off. And that's the frustration that Kamara's dealing with. I hate it for the Saints. I hate it for Saints fans. There are a lot of discussions that we're going to have moving forward, but the Saints get that mini bye. They've got to get a little bit healthier, and hopefully they can show a little bit of life. But there was just none last night on Thursday Night Football. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.